Let's talk about aligning things. In the previous video, we looked at guides, and those are one way to align things inside Photoshop, but there are other ways. So to do this demonstration, I will create 3 shapes on the canvas, and I will make them different sizes because that will help us to visualize what's happening. And I will switch over to the Move tool and ensure that Auto Select is on. This will allow me to work very quickly. Have a look at the options here at the top for the Move tool. You notice all these buttons, and you notice that they're grayed out. That's because right now I only have one object or layer selected, and these are the alignment and distribution buttons. And to do that, to align something, you need to have more than one object selected. And to distribute, you actually need more than 2. Because alignment, we're going to align something to something else. So let me click and drag outside the layer and select all 3 of them. And you can now see that the buttons are lit up. So if I click on the vertical alignment, so these 3 buttons here are for vertical. You see how their top edge is just snapped into place. Okay, so at the click of a button, you can take many objects on your canvas and align them together. So let me break down these buttons for you. I'll just mess up my alignment a little bit and then activate 2 layers. So you'll see with 2 layers active, we have only the alignment buttons lit up. I'll explain distribution shortly. Let's start with alignment. So with two layers active, we have the alignment buttons, and this group over here is the horizontal alignment. Okay, so you can align the edges by moving things horizontally in the canvas. So if I were to just, let me show you this, because I'm going to need to space them out a bit so they don't crash into each other. So let me select all 3 and now align the left edge. You'll see how they all get snugly on their left edge. Let me try with the middle. You see now the middle of the objects are all lined up. I'll pull out a guide just so you see. Here at the center of the objects, they are all aligned. And now if I take the right edge alignment button and click it, you can now see that the right edges are all lined up. So this first set of 3 buttons always deals with horizontal alignment. We got the left edge, the middle edge, and the right edge. Let's do vertical alignment. So I'm going to move them around so they don't crash into each other and then reselect them. This second group of buttons over here is for vertical alignment. So we got the top edge, we got the middle edge, and we got the bottom edge. See how they're all aligned? So very, very quickly and easily, we can position items in the canvas perfectly. So be careful when you use them because you might start doing things and then hit the wrong button. So if I were to align the left edge now, you just might get a little bit confused because the objects align themselves and because of their position, they started overlapping. But there are different shapes there. They just crashed into each other. So I'm going to undo that. And let's talk about distribution. So for distribution, I'm going to create some new shapes. And I will create them to be squares because I find that's much easier to see for this demonstration. So I'll just quickly make a bunch of copies. So you see I did that quite fast and they are not aligned. So I'll just select them all and align vertically in the canvas. So they're now aligned, but we have what's called distribution to space objects out evenly. So you'll see the space over here, okay, is different from the space over here. See, there's all this extra. So if you wanted to equally space these in the canvas, you can do that. So I'm going to grab my move tool and highlight all of these objects. Now the alignment and distribution buttons are active. And here we have vertical distribution, and here we have horizontal distribution. So the way to read these icons are these vertical lines. So you see that vertical line here, and they're spaced out horizontally. Okay, so try to get familiar with this icon and the image inside because it's indicating what will happen. If you're not sure, you can leave the mouse over the button and the tooltip will appear. And it's telling me distribute horizontally. So there will be equally spaced in the horizontal direction. So let's click it, 3, 2, 1, click, and you see how the objects just jumped into place? So what's happening is it is equally spacing them out between the first and the last object in the horizontal position. So let's do this vertically. I'm just going to get them into some kind of position. And I will quickly select all the objects. Let me first align them so we can see this a bit better. So I aligned their horizontal centers. And now I'm going to use this button to distribute them vertically. 3, 2, 1, let's click. Kaboom. We now have the objects equally spaced. So this is really great. You don't have to worry about manually doing things, and you could be 100% sure that they are mathematically, scientifically, perfectly spaced out. So what if you want to do both directions? So keep in mind, we do distribution and alignment in one axis at a time, in one direction at a time. So you have to do things horizontally in one step and vertically in another. So if you want to do things, let's say diagonally in both directions, here's the process. And you can try this with me. So I'm going to take the first object, put it into the position I want. And then I will take the last object, put it into the position I want. Now I could select all the objects. And now I just have to distribute in both directions. So I will first distribute horizontally, and I will distribute vertically. So you see Photoshop got a little bit confused. So if this happens, you just have to be sure that your objects are kind of in the right spot first. So I'm going to need to do a little rearranging here. So I'll take this one, put it approximately here, this one approximately here, this one in the middle, and now we could do the process and it should work. Select them all, distribute vertically, distribute horizontally. So it's just a matter of setting your objects in their approximate positions first, so Photoshop doesn't get confused, and then they will distribute nicely. And the last thing I want to show you with alignment distribution are the 3 dots over here. So if you click on these 3 dots, this is the pop-up that comes up, and it gives you some more advanced options. So thankfully, these buttons here with distribution simplified it, because in the past you had all these different options to distribute. So if you need more customization over how you distribute, meaning over which edge you want to be locked into the distribution, you can have a look at these. We tend not to really need it too much in my course, so I'm going to skip over it. And you also have this Align To option. So right now it's aligned to the selection. So in the past, aligning to the canvas was actually quite difficult. But thanks to this new feature of aligning to the canvas, you can actually do this quite easily. So let me just delete all my shapes, except for one, and I will make it active by clicking on it. Thank you, Move Tool and Auto Select. And now I will click on these 3 dots, change the Align to Canvas, and now that I have only one object selected, because we're aligning to the canvas, these buttons are lit up. So I can now click on the horizontal center and the horizontal center vertically, and now it is perfectly in the center of the canvas. You can also use this for the edges. So if I want it up in the corner, you can just click around and find the alignment button that you need. So that's pretty cool. Alignment and distribution. And the last thing I can show you with alignment and distribution are the smart guides. So smart guides are pretty cool. They're relatively new inside Photoshop, and you can just make sure they're enabled by going to the View menu. And where are they? Right there. So in the View menu, Show Smart Guides. So they are checked by default, and I usually leave them on. I find them quite helpful. There are some situations where you need to turn this stuff off, but for now, just make sure they are on, and I have snapping on, so we're good to go. So I'm just going to drag this object around, and you start seeing these orange lines appear. So these are what's called the smart guides, because they're trying to be smart and help you align things. So if you want something right in the center, you might be able to find it. Okay, oh, there it was. So you see, that's the center of the canvas, and the one edge of my box is aligning to the center. But it's quite useful if you have multiple objects. So you see, as I create this copy, it's telling me they are aligned with their top, bottom, and middle edge. So that's pretty useful, and it's telling me they are 100 pixels apart. So if I go ahead and make more copies, the Smart Guide will actually help me to keep it aligned, and you see it snap right there. So it knows I'm trying to equally space this out, and it snapped to 100 pixels. So that's pretty useful. And it starts aligning things as you drag it around. So you see I'm now aligned, locked in with the object above on the left, middle, and right edge. The object was a different size, won't look exactly the same, but you'll see now the center of this object is aligned with the right edge of that object and the middle of the canvas. Now the left edge of this box with the left edge of the box above. So you can see these smart guides are just really trying to pull out all the possible alignment edges as you approach them and snap to them to create some perfect alignments. So that's it for smart guides. Alignment and distribution. I would recommend you get familiar with it because it ensures that you're doing things precisely and perfectly inside Photoshop. Because of all these advanced tools, there's no reasons for objects to be misaligned or malaligned. I don't know what the right word is. As we get into graphic design theory later, you'll see that alignment is a very powerful graphic design element. So we have the ability to see that things are perfectly aligned. Okay, so I just accidentally or on purpose pretending like I accidentally didn't align them properly. So Photoshop allows us to see this, right? You can see this pixel over here, right, is not aligned with this pixel over here. Very small detail, but it is noticeable. You might not think it's a big deal at this moment, but when we start doing graphic design, these things are important. When something is off by a pixel, you end up noticing it. If you don't notice it consciously, the observer might notice it subconsciously. Okay, so it's important for things to be aligned, and we'll talk about this more when we get into graphic design. For now, get comfortable with the tool and practice, practice, practice. The more comfortable you are with these tools, the easier it will be later to be creative and to actually create things with the tools.